eyes, I recorded 2 months in the life of Victoria Nalango Namusisi. She's a rare and gifted woman from Uganda, which is located in East Africa. She is the founder and director of Bright Kids Children's Home, where children are provided with desperately needed food, shelter, warmth, education, and a dose of much-needed love. Without hesitation, I can truly say I've never met anyone so completely devoted to the needs and well-being of children. Her focus is to develop and provide a safe, loving, and secure environment for abandoned children. These children were ravaged by war, poverty, and disease. And for many, Victoria is the only parent they have or really will ever know. She provides the only home some of the children have ever known. Quite literally, 95% of the children living at Bright Kids today were saved from almost certain death because of Victoria's personal commitment and sacrifice. What I saw and experienced was nothing short of miraculous. Ugandan smiles were recorded everywhere. The strength of Victoria shone through the eye of my camera, and soon it enveloped everyone she touched. It truly was a privilege to be a part of her vision and growing family of almost 70 bright kids.
She's my mom, she's my dad, she's my uncle, she's my auntie, she's everything to me.
She should be known worldwide of what she's done. It's just been because she didn't do it for herself. She didn't say, I want to do this so that everybody else is going to look at me. She talks about these children, one human being helping another human being. A child that has no clothes on or just rags, dirty. You know, we walk down the street, we see people like that. She stops, she wants to help them. She wants to give them a hope and a future, and she sees a hope and a future in their eyes.
To me, what stood out most is just this idea that she really has no obligation to do this. Like, she isn't an employee of a state-run thing. Like, she just is the same as any of us. And I mean, I think it always reminded me of, I think it was that Robert Kennedy quote of, like, if not us, who, and if not now, when. Like, she is putting that into practice.
I think what Victoria is doing is amazing. In a country that lacks resources, she finds resources. In a country that is very customary in terms of suppressing voice, she has a very individual voice that tells the government what is missing. And on top of it, gives these kids a real hope that I think at some level it is going to count as a very positive advantage that they had, and unfortunately many others in Uganda in their situations won't have, because they won't have a Victoria to look up to.
My parents were from a very humble beginning. My father and mother really worked hard, but above all, my father worked very hard. You know, it rained on him. That's why I was telling you I would hate sitting out on the water when it's raining, because this is what my father never wanted me to go through. My father, after growing up, realized that it was hard work if somebody didn't have any education. And God bless him, I always thank him so much, because he even encouraged us a lot. I was always getting surprised why somebody who didn't want to go to school would encourage us a lot. He would tell us that there's nothing I can give you, but what I can give you is education, because I don't want you to suffer the way I'm suffering.
You're giving hope to children for a future. Probably 95% would be dead today had you not given them the chance. But how did this all begin?
First of all, my involvement in scouting. I ended up being elected the head of the strategic priority number 4, which emphasizes taking scouting beyond schools to the vulnerable children who had no opportunity to go to school. But unfortunately, there was no program that targeted them. So among our 7 strategic priorities at that time, we included reaching out. And reaching out just meant reaching out with scouting to wherever people were.
There was a boy named Mehdi who met Victoria under an umbrella tree at the tender age of 10. He was a homeless street kid who had run away from home, and he had run away from home because he was constantly being beaten by his stepmother. He had lived and survived on the streets since the age of 5.
It was 1995, January 1st. Because they wanted to beat me at home, they used to beat me. For example, look at this leg. And I decided to run away from home. I was 10 because I had spent 5 years on the street. I had no money, but at that time, these big vehicles, they used to take young children for free. So I prepared myself, and because I didn't have what to put on, I had to steal the clothes for my young brother. Early in the morning on the 1st of January 1995, I boarded the bus to Kampala. But when I reached in the bus, then I didn't know where Kampala is. And I didn't know how it looked like. But inside my heart, I had this voice that, no, don't care. When you reach a step and you find there is no anybody left in the bus, that will be Kampala. If the bus could reach in the middle of the forest and there was no one left in the bus and they decided to stop there, for me I would have thought that that is Kampala. Because my intention of coming to Kampala, I wanted to get jobs. I thought that when I come to Kampala, I would just be given a job, because I was told in Kampala there are very many people. Whenever you want a job, you just ask and you are given a job. So they could say, no, don't take that boy. That boy is very wise. Those are street kids. The time before she used to come, we used to go and eat from those garbage bins. That food which is being left by the people, they eat and leave the leftovers. We fight with the dog, we fight with the birds to eat the same food. Now there was no any way of escaping the diseases that come from that environment, because we used to wash our eyes from those trenches, water, sewages. We wash from there. Then we used to eat this food. It has been left there for so many hours. We could come and eat that same food. So there was no any way of us escaping diseases, typhoid, cholera. You used to wake up in the morning, you slept with someone, and in the morning you find that person dead there. So when we saw Madame Victoria starting to come and give us food, give us what to eat, really we saw her our comforter.
There's an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. In 2008, my husband Lou and I visited Bright Kids for the first time. We were both immediately impressed with the work Victoria was doing and how many lives she was transforming for the better.
How I became involved with Bright Kids relates back to a friendship that I had going back to the 1960s with a man by the name of Manuel Pinto. We taught school together in Uganda, 66 to 68. We kept up contact. He then became involved in HIV/AIDS issues. He was the first commissioner for HIV/AIDS in Uganda. Unfortunately, as we were about to visit, we were 5 weeks away from a visit to him and to Uganda. He was killed in a fluke accident. His automobile rolled over him while he was trying to fix it. So as part of our visit to meet with his wife and kids, we were asked to just take a look at what he had been involved with, which was the Bright Kids.
Our dear visitors, you're welcome. We have been waiting for you. Are you sure? I'm sure, and I know I'm ready to dance for you.
After a few days, we had been in contact with some people who had known Victoria. Then they said, would you like to become involved?
From that point, we then began to think about ways in which this might be an attractive linkage with the Ford Institute, with the university, and with the graduate school. And the Ford Institute is basically a research and applied activities organization. Our students are professionally oriented. They are in the master or PhD programs. And so about in 2003, we received a grant from the Ford Motor Company, basically asking us to set up the Institute to look at human security issues. Human security starts with very basic needs: food, water, a place to shelter, and basically survival, whether it's individual violence, child victimized by parents or a father who's abusive, all the way to dangers that children encounter because of HIV/AIDS and the nature of the way it's passed on through, often through the mother to the child, all the way to conflict issues, as was the case when Bright Kids was started. And it evolved from there. I had been interested in getting back involved in Uganda. I had not been involved in recent years, so we started thinking about various modalities, one of which was the idea of the interns. And 3 years ago, we started having the interns go in. That basically made the whole process roll, because one of the things that happens with the interns is they get hooked. The interns that went over 2-3 years ago are still very much involved in the process. They're like an alumni group, and they maintain a cohesion.
Since I've returned from my internship working with Bright Kids Uganda, I've still been active with the organization. I keep in touch with Victoria all the time, and here in the States we are trying to still work on some funding, still work on some projects, still updating the website, and all of those things can be done from a distance. So just because I left my work at Bright Kids Uganda has not stopped.
As soon as I was there that first year, it was clear that I felt like I fit. You know, I consider these people my family. Victoria and I are in constant communication about, you know, children that are sick, you know, whether or not somebody has a baby of their own, school. I know what's going on because these kids are my family. They're my brothers and they're my sisters.
When I spoke with my mom, maybe like the third weekend, and she's like, how is it? And how's, you know, Victoria? Because she's heard the name, and I'm like, I think I need to name like my firstborn after her or something. Like she is just a really powerful force.
Now you mentioned the
IDPC, Internally Displaced People's Camp.
And that's located in
northern Uganda.
We had traveled to Gulu to look at these camps.
Some of them are already dismantled now because the war is over.
This was the Lord's Resistance Army conflict.
The Lord's Resistance Army is one of these notorious groups that uses terror to maintain its influence and control. Their method was to capture, kidnap kids, 12, 14 years old, and threaten them with mutilation. The first thing they had to do when they were captured was, if they were with their families, they had to kill their parents and their brothers and sisters in order to ensure that they were criminal and that they had no one left in the world that would ever look for them. Then they were taken off into the bush, taught how to fight, taught how to serve the adult soldiers, and particularly the women, the girls, 14-year-old girls. This ultimately affected around 300,000 people in the northern part of Uganda.
As a news editor of my paper, I used to edit stories all the time from northern Uganda. I didn't understand the magnitude of the whole story. And because we had censored journalism, our journalists never brought the pictures of the children who were dying out there. We were not seeing the actual picture of what was happening in what the government has set up and called the internally displaced people's camps. And whenever I heard about them, I was asking other fellow journalists whether they understood what an internally displaced people's camp was, because I thought maybe it was like a refugee place. Then I said, but they can't be refugees in their own countries, because when you are in your own country, how can you be in a refugee camp? Not until 2004, when we had the attack on Baronyo, which was publicized all over the world, where people were burnt in their huts, where the soldiers who are supposed to be protecting the people had all gone out to pick their salaries, and the rebels got to know that they had all gone to get their money from the bank, and they attacked the whole IDPC and set the huts on fire. Bright Kids Uganda took on one of the most severely burnt kids. So I was challenged as head of scouting at that time to make a trip to northern Uganda.
For someone to go to northern Uganda at that time, it was frightening. We worried for her life. Every day there were headline stories in newspapers.
Landmines, people,
of landmines and buses that were stopped, abducted, and people were some abducted. Those were young, because the rebels were kidnapping young people, and the older ones were being hacked to death.
I remember when how I lost my dad, but my mom, I don't know, because they took her when she was still alive. But my dad was crushed with an axe.
Did you see that happen?
I saw it happening.
Did your little brothers and sisters see it?
All of us, we saw it. It was the war which was in northern Uganda by the LRA.
It was unimaginable. You meet kids who are injured as they were running out from the rebels. They are rotting in the IDPCs. You meet kids like Ronald Abong. He had arrived in the IDPC 9 months earlier. And somebody brings Ronald Abong and puts him next to one of the British nurses. And the lady lifts up Ronald Abong and says, "Victoria, what can we do to this boy? He has no injury for me to dress, but he looks horrible." The boy couldn't stand on his own at 6.5 years. The eyes were almost closed. So I asked the camp leader whether I could take Ronald to the hospital. And he said, "You can go ahead and take him." I went to my room, got out some money, went and bought some second-hand clothes, rushed back to the IDPC, dressed Ronald Abong and took him to the hospital. Then I said, "Now what I want, forget about the age, I want him to be treated." So the doctor told me, "The only medicine I'm giving you is deworming to get the worms out of his tummy, because he has this big tummy, I know he has worms, and multivitamins. The rest of the medicine is you." I took Ronald Abong back with me. And after 3 months with us, I woke up one morning when his skin was on the sheets. The skin had peeled off his head and it was on the sheets. I was shocked. I thought he was going to die. Called Dr. Tim again and he tells me, "Congratulations." I said, "What?" "I think you didn't hear me well. I'm saying the boy is about to die because even the skin has gone off." And he says, "Congratulations, Victoria. The skin coming off, that means he's coming back to life." I couldn't believe him. But today, when I see Ronald playing in his school football team, when I see him with that big smile, when I see that for the last 2 years, he's always coming out on top of his class, I can't believe, Dr. Tim Momoa, that he was actually coming back to life.
All these kids have a horrendous story that they start with, and you do really have a family. How do you manage all these kids? What would a day be like at Bright Kids?
Normally every day my alarm would go off at 6:30 in the morning.
Wow.
When it goes off, I make sure that I go and switch on the water heater switch because of Esther. And she knows that she's my child, so she refused to sleep with the other babies where they sleep. And therefore shares the same bedroom with me, which gives me a headache of having to wake up like the other nannies wake up at 6:30 in the morning. Make sure that I have found her homework exercise book, put it in her school bag, organize whether it's a sports day, then she has to put on sportswear. If it is a normal school day like Monday, Wednesday and Friday, she puts on uniform. Then Tuesday and Thursday is sportswear, shorts and t-shirt. So I have to organize those, the canvas shoes. And then I get her out of bed at 7, brushing her teeth and all that. She goes through that herself. She has learned to go through that, but then I have to help her bathe. And then after that, dress her up and her school bag on her back. We go down now to join the other babies, and then it's breakfast, and then the boda comes and takes them to school.
Now you said boda.
That's a motorcycle. Yeah, the motorcycle takes them to school.
How many on a motorcycle?
Sometimes they put 3, sometimes 4, and then come back for others. When they have gone to school, I always think I'm going to go back to bed, but it's very difficult. By the time they are off to school, it's around 7:30.
Bye, Mommy. Bye, Mommy.
Bye.
When the Bright Kids graduate from vocational or secondary school and pass the required exams, they move on to higher education or a career. I had the opportunity in 2012 to interview several of the Bright Kids who finished their schooling and who now are on their own. One of them was Habib Magezi.
What did Victoria emphasize the most when you were here?
She instilled in us the heart of loving education, to read, because it is through education and the books that would help us become better people.
Through Victoria's determination, her hard work, her compassion, her love, and her vision, she has created a loving environment and encouraged a very strong desire to learn. Her mantra: education, education, education.
Probably one of the greatest things about working at Bright Kids Uganda was actually being able to work with the children. And what struck me the most about these children is that, you know, they come from such poor backgrounds, and some of them have no family. They have had nobody to care for them. But these children that I worked with this summer are some of the most amazing children I have ever met.
You know, there were moments where you just remembered, when you stop seeing people as victims and you just see them as people, like that happened very quickly. And you just enjoyed their time and, you know, you played with them, they're children. But there are always those moments where it just hits you like, wow, they've come from really terrible places.
We are children of this land, we the future generation. We the children of the sunshine, we are leaders for tomorrow. Bright Kids is a lovely home, we live in here, the place of paradise. Join us, say, Bright Kids, we shall rise again. Join us, say, Bright Kids, we shall rise again.